Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I have the first mission of the Soviet campaign in World at War, and again we are playing on the historical accuracy mod, which I will have linked down below. And you're probably wondering, what are you wearing right here? For my cosplay playthrough right here, I'm wearing the Soviet M35 uniform. This is a reproduction of that uniform, and this is actually what the soldiers would have worn in Stalingrad at that time. I dress up as the characters as I'm playing through games, and no, I am not a communist. I don't support communism in any way, I hate communism, and I don't support the Soviet government. This is more just respect towards the regular Red Army soldiers that just stood up and defended their homeland from the Nazi invasion. Not every soldier that fought in the Red Army was a communist. There was plenty of decent people that were just defending their land from the Nazis that were coming in and invading their land. So this is more just a respect towards the soldiers that had just fought in that time period. And also, for people wondering, I will have two more uniforms for this playthrough. So we had the American, Pacific uniform that we wore in the last part. I will have one more American uniform and one more Soviet uniform. So this is the cosplay that I'll be using for the Battle of Stalingrad. I have a separate Soviet uniform and a separate Soviet hat for the Battle of Berlin. And I'll also have a different American uniform for one of the Pacific missions. So anyways, let's start this up here. Vendetta, we're going to be playing on the historical accuracy mod, which I hope that you guys are enjoying it. And I will also be talking a lot of the history about Stalingrad as we are as we go through the mission. So anyways, let's start this up here. Vendetta, and we're doing hard. And Vendetta also means revenge in Italian.
The rotten cancer of the fascist Reich ravages Europe like a plague. The relentless drive into our motherland steals the lives of men, women, and children alike. The arrogance of their leaders is matched only by the brutality of their soldiers. These are the darkest days of the Nazi occupation of Stalingrad.
Also, for people wondering, is General Heinrich Amsel a real person? I don't think so. I have never heard of him before. The commander at Stalingrad was Paulus, which is who he could be based on. Also, you will see the German soldiers have different uniforms in this with the historical accuracy mod, and some of the Soviet soldiers have different uniforms too. This is meant to represent what they had during the Battle of Stalingrad. So the Germans are the German 6th Army. You'll see their uniforms are a bit different from the base of World at War. And another key detail is you will see the German soldiers with Soviet weapons, like they'll have Soviet Mosin Nagants, PPSHs, and SVT-40s, and that's actually historically accurate because during the Eastern Front, the Germans had captured massive stockpiles of Soviet weapons, and they used them a lot. And so the PPSH, for example, was a submachine gun that the Germans even preferred over the MP40. And as for the SVT-40, the Soviet semi-automatic rifle, the US was the only country during World War II that had a semi-automatic rifle as their standard infantry rifle. Other countries had semi-autos, like the Germans had the G41, and then later the G43, and the Soviets had the SVT-38, and then the SVT-40. But these were not standard issue rifles, so not every soldier got it. The standard issue rifle for Germany was the Karabiner 98K. The standard issue rifle for the Soviets was the Mosin Nagant. Now, about it, the Soviets actually planned for the SVT-40 to actually be their standard issue rifle. The SVT-38 was used in the Winter War when the Soviets had actually invaded Finland. And one of the problems with the SVT-38 is that the magazine would actually randomly follow the gun. But then the SVT-40 was later made, and it was corrected with that. But one issue with the SVT-40 is that each magazine was fitted to each specific rifle. That means that the SVT-40's mag would be designed to that specific SVT-40. So if you were like a Soviet soldier and you tried to find a, an SVT-40 mag off of a dead soldier back then, chances are that SVT-40 mag would not fit into your SVT-40. So what the soldiers were told is they were supposed to actually load the SVT-40 for stripper clips. They had a detachable magazine, but they were supposed to load it for stripper clips. But anyways, the reason the SVT-40 never became the standard issue rifle for the Soviets is because the Nazi invasion, Operation Barbarossa, which was the German invasion of the Soviet Union. And one really stupid thing that the Soviets did, it was a really dumb thing, is they had massive stockpiles of these SVT-40s on the border with Germany. So in eastern occupied occupied Poland. The Soviets had been occupying Eastern Poland. They invaded that 2 weeks after Germany. They had massive stockpiles of SVT-40s. And the idea of this was this, this was their fastest firing rifle, their most advanced rifle at the time, and this is what, the soldiers would use if there was a war. Right away. But what happened is the Germans had overrun the Soviets so badly, and instead of the Soviets blowing up the stockpiles, they just left them there. They didn't even, sabotage them, blow them up. They just left a lot of those armories there. And that's how the Germans captured so many Soviet weapons in that initial invasion of the Soviet Union invasion of also Eastern Poland. The Germans, for example, if you go on Google and you type in SVT-40 World War II, chances are you will see more pictures with German soldiers than Soviet soldiers with the SVT-40. And that's because the Germans captured so many SVT-40s because the Soviets really messed up that they didn't blow up the SVT-40 stockpiles before they retreated. And what I will say about this scene is actually based on the fountain scene from Enemy at the Gates. I'll actually play that scene for you guys right now. So that's what this scene was mostly based on.
Shh. I need your help. Do what I say, and we can avenge this massacre. My injured hand means I can no longer aim. You will do it for me. Take my rifle and watch the road.
Also, notice how instead of a Panther tank, there's just a regular Panzer tank right here. I don't think Panther tanks were used in Stalingrad. I'm not a big tank guy. I know World War II guns, but I don't know much about tanks. But that's why the Panther was replaced by the Panzer tank in the historical accuracy mod.
Modak in the car is General Amsel, architect of Stalingrad's misery. He is responsible for the cold-blooded murder of men, women, and children. Not just here, but throughout
You see those
the
pouches? The pouches, he has
days,
MP40
I
pouches.
hunted him. For 3 days, luck alone has saved his wretched life. Sniping your enemy is like hunting any other animal. Fire at the wrong moment and your chance will be forever lost. Patience. If we reveal our position to Amsel's men, this fountain will be our grave. Now, load your rifle, but hold your fire. Wait until the bombers are directly overhead. The sound of the engines will drown out your shot. Ready? Shoot now! Ha!
Take them all out in 5 shots. Let's see.
Again!
Got him. Okay. This one's a little tricky right here.
To the left! Excellent aim. You are a natural hunter.
You get an achievement for that, by the way. For
Time to close
killing
in
all of them
with
in
the
5
kill.
shots.
This way.
And for people wondering, if planes flew over like that, yes, it would cover the rifle sound, because those planes were extremely loud and they were not flying very high.
Armored patrol. We must find another route to Amsel. Stay low and follow me. This way, before they discover the dead.
Music is really creepy and disturbing during this.
For days, I have crept through shadows like a rat. This place once echoed with conversations of friends and lovers. No longer. Mark my words, comrade. One day things will change. We will take the fight to their land, to their people, to their blood.
And Reznov's uniform, I think, was changed to more accurately represent a sergeant, but I don't remember what his original one looked like.
Tips the balance of a hunt.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about history. I hope you guys aren't bored by me interrupting the gameplay on this. But basically, what had happened is, this is, September 1942. This is already 1 year into the German invasion of the Soviet Union. So the Germans had invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941. I think it was June 22nd, 1941, which is Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. And Operation Barbarossa is the largest invasion in human history. For people that want to know, the largest invasion in human history is Germany invading the Soviet Union. And basically, the Nazis, the reason that they were doing a lot of this stuff is because this was Hitler's ideology, which is Lebensraum. And Lebensraum, what that basically was, is this idea that Germany was going to colonize all of this eastern territory, and I think it translates to living space for Germans. So they were going to take all this territory in Eastern Europe and give this to Germans, and they were just going to colonize it and populate it with Germans. Now, what was going to happen to the inhabitants in Eastern Europe? What was going to happen to all the Slavs, the Poles, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Russians? What was going to happen to all the Slavs? Well, they were going to be all killed. They were going to be killed or enslaved. And anybody that wasn't going to be killed or enslaved were going to be deported past the Ural Mountains. So that's what the Nazis were going to do, is they were going to mass murder all the Slavic peoples that were in Eastern Europe. The Nazis hated Slavic people. And the Nazis hated Jewish people, they hated gay people, they hated handicapped people the most. But they also really hated Slavic people. They really hated Slavs. And they did not see Slavs as people. If you look, for example, the reason that the civilian casualties were so much higher in Eastern Europe than like Western Europe, than like France, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, in those countries, is because the Nazis did not see the Slav as people. They saw the people in like Western Europe, like the French, the Danish, the Norwegians, the Dutch, the Belgians. They saw them as people that they were planning on Germanifying. They saw them as Aryans they wanted to Germanify. What they were going to basically do with those people is they were going to force them to speak German over time and destroy their culture and make them German. But there was no plans to Germanize the people in Eastern Europe, the Slavs. They were going to be all killed. They didn't see them as Aryan. They were all going to be mass murdered. And here's the reason that Germany was attacking the Stalingrad at this time. For people wondering, why didn't Germany just invade Moscow? Why didn't they take Moscow? Well, they did. They did try to take Moscow. They got to Moscow in December 1941. So about half a year after they invaded, they got to Moscow. And about this is that the bad weather that was at Moscow and the fierce, Soviet defense, it prevented the Germans from taking Moscow, and they abandoned their pursuits in Moscow. They didn't take it. And then they waited until it was summer. They still occupied a huge chunk of the Soviet Union, but they waited until it was summer. There were some more battles that happened during the winter of 1941. But they waited the winter of 1941 into early 1942. But they waited until it got more warmer. And when it got more warmer, they pushed down towards the Caucasus. And what basically happened was the German objective at this point was the AA line. And I don't remember the name of the two cities. I apologize for that. I will have the picture up on the screen. But what the AA line basically was, it was this one, Soviet city that was to the far north, starts with A, and then another Soviet city that was also to the south, to the far south, started with A. And this was past Leningrad, Moscow, and Stalingrad. So Leningrad was the city at the top that they were focused on capturing. Moscow was the city in the middle, the capital, and then Stalingrad was a city on the bottom. So eventually, these were all three major cities that they wanted to take. And the Germans at the time were actually doing a siege at Leningrad, which was later St. Petersburg. And the siege had lasted for, I think it was like 2 years. It was like a really long siege that had lasted in Leningrad. And what the Nazis did in Leningrad was they starved out the civilian population. And the Soviets didn't even let the civilians leave. The civilians tried to leave the city. They were seen as cowards and shot. About this is that the reason that the Nazis were so obsessed with taking Stalingrad, there's a really big myth out there that people say that Hitler was so obsessed mainly with taking Stalingrad because of the name Stalingrad. Well, Hitler definitely wanted to take Stalingrad because of the name. It was going to be a propaganda victory if he took it, that he took a city named after Stalin, but that wasn't the main objective. They weren't trying to take Stalingrad based on the name Stalingrad alone. The reason that they were ultimately trying to take Stalingrad is because Stalingrad was in the Caucasus region, which was to the north of Azerbaijan SSR. The Azerbaijan SSR, today it's the modern-day country of Azerbaijan. It was part of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union got 80% of its oil at that time in 1941, 1942 from Azerbaijan, specifically Baku, which Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan. So what the German plans were, is the Germans were planning on taking Stalingrad. And after they took Stalingrad, Stalingrad was an industrial city. It was on the Volga River. They were going to take that and push down towards Baku, and then they were going to seize the oil fields. And then they were going to use that, the oil that they seized from the oil fields, specifically to conquer everything up to the Ural Mountains to where the AA line is. So that was their objective, is it was oil, is they were trying to take Stalingrad so that they could take the oil fields in Baku. And now, here's the big question for you guys. This is, where did Nazi Germany get most of its oil from? Because when you think about it, Germany barely has any oil production of its own. So where did Germany get its oil from? Germany had a lot of tanks, thousands of tanks, planes, trucks. Where did they get the oil for these conquests? Well, Germany got its oil during World War II from three sources. It got it mainly from Romania, which is an Axis ally. It also got oil from coal that it refined into oil. I don't know how that works exactly, but I know they converted coal into oil. And then lastly, the Soviet Union. The Nazis and the Soviet Union had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And while the Soviets and the Nazis didn't necessarily like each other, they exchanged a lot, they traded a lot, and they also divided up Poland. So the Nazis took Western Poland, the Soviets took Eastern Poland. So the Soviets, I think, sold like 1 million barrels of oil or more of that to Nazi Germany, and it just kept coming in. And what I think in 1941 alone, I think it was actually even more than 1 million barrels. I think it was actually way more than that. So it was in 1941 alone, in that year, it was like they had already given, up until June, before Operation Barbarossa, the Soviets had already sold millions of barrels of oil to Germany. So when you think about that when Nazi tanks were rolling through France, they were rolling through Belgium, they were rolling through Denmark, those countries, the Netherlands, they were using Soviet and Romanian oil. And this is one thing that because the Soviet agreement for oil, I think it happened in 1940, so I don't think Germany was using Soviet oil when it invaded Poland, but it was using Soviet oil when it invaded France, Netherlands, Denmark. And this is the one part of history that the Soviets really tried to downplay. After World War II, the Soviets pretended like this never happened. They were pretending like, oh, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, it was just a peaceful pact. It was just a peace treaty. That was just it. But it was more than that. They were exchanging a lot of technology. They were selling a lot of stuff. So the Soviets had sold Germany tons of gas. And Stalin did not think that Hitler would break the pact with him. Stalin was really arrogant about this. He thought that Hitler would not break the pact, that he would not invade the Soviet Union. And now you're probably wondering, if the Nazis were getting so much oil from the Soviets, and the Soviets were giving them what they wanted, then why did they invade the Soviet Union? Because Hitler was an idiot. Hitler was a genocidal maniac, but he was also an idiot. It's because Hitler was obsessed with taking Eastern Europe. He was obsessed with taking the European part of the Soviet Union. He was absolutely obsessed with that. So if Hitler had never invaded the Soviet Union, chances are Stalin would have stayed neutral in the entire conflict. And that's why Operation Barbarossa will go down in history as probably the stupidest military decision in history. Probably the stupidest one. Number two would probably have to be in the exact same year, Japan bombing Pearl Harbor. So Japan bombing Pearl Harbor and this Nazi Germany invading the Soviet Union, the two stupidest military decisions in history. And both of that, Japan bombing Pearl Harbor was the death of Imperial Japan, and Germany invading the Soviet Union was their grave at that point. It was just it. Now, about the Battle of Stalingrad. So how did the Battle of Stalingrad actually happen? The Battle of Stalingrad is the largest battle in human history, the largest one. The Battle of Stalingrad lasted for about half a year. It started in July, 1942, and went up until early parts of February 1943. And over 1 million people died in the Battle of Stalingrad, and there was hundreds of thousands of casualties. 1 million people died in that battle. And so Stalingrad, at its height, it was like over 10,000 people were dying a day in Stalingrad. All the civilian soldiers, 10,000 people were dying a day. And when you watch like Enemy at the Gates, or when you see like Call of Duty Enemy at the Gates or Call of Duty Finest Hour, when you see the Soviets like crossing the river towards Stalingrad, that actually happened. It was the Volga, which was a river on the Soviet occupied. The Soviets were on the right side of the river. The Nazis occupied Stalingrad, which was on the left side of the river. And so the Soviets were sending soldiers. They were sending soldiers by train to the Volga right outside Stalingrad, and then they were putting them on boats and crossing the Volga. So stuff like that did happen. But the reason that the Nazis had ultimately failed at Stalingrad, the one historical inaccuracy, and this is a really big, Call of Duty Vanguard is terrible with this, because in Call of Duty Vanguard, I think that it starts in like July 1942 when you're playing as Paulina or something, or I think August 1942, early August, and then you get knocked out by like an air raid, and then you wake up. And when you wake up, the Germans are already in Stalingrad. That makes no sense, because the Germans didn't get into Stalingrad until like 3 weeks after. So Paulina had to have been out for 3 weeks. So that was a massive historical accuracy in Vanguard. But the Nazis got to Stalingrad around August 1942. A lot of people think that it was July, but July, it was kind of like you had clashes and battles that were on the outskirts. And July 1942, there was like massive air raids. So like massive planes had come in and bombed Stalingrad. If you count that as invading Stalingrad, then I guess yes. But German troops, I'm pretty sure German troops did not actually enter Stalingrad, correct me if I'm wrong, until August 1942. I think that's when they got in. So there was already clashes outside the city in July 1942, but they didn't land until August 1942. Now, to quickly summarize the Battle of Stalingrad, the reason that the Germans were not able to take the city was because the Soviets constantly kept sending reinforcements in. They were sending by train, crossing the Volga, and German supplies were getting cut off. And by the time that the winter had kicked in, when you first start seeing snow, so like the second that snow appears in Stalingrad, the Germans had already lost. Like that's the moment that they've already lost the battle. So by November, December 1942, it was impossible. They could not take Stalingrad. The battle was already lost. There was no winning that battle, and they should have pulled out. If they wanted to save the Sixth Army, that was the German Sixth Army, they should have pulled out. But you're probably wondering, if the Germans knew that they were going to lose Stalingrad in November, December 1942, then why didn't they pull out, until they surrendered in February 1943? Because they didn't surrender until 2 months after they realized they've lost the battle. So they had 2 months to basically get out at that point. Why did they, stay there until February? Why? Because of Hitler. That's why. Because Hitler was so obsessed with taking Stalingrad. He became so obsessed with it that even when it was all the battle was pretty much lost at that point, he would not let them pull out. The German command was begging Hitler to be able to pull out. Like they wanted to get out, but Hitler was not allowing it, because Hitler was such an idiot that in his eyes, it was only victory if you keep advancing. It was there in Hitler's eyes. There was no such thing as retreat. There was no such thing as regrouping. It was advance. So sometimes in warfare, you need to retreat. Sometimes you need to pull out in order to be able to fight another day. Because if you stay in one place for too long and you're gonna lose, it's better to actually retreat and live to fight another day than get completely wiped out by staying in one area. But that was Hitler's, orders, where you are not to leave the city, you are to stay there and fight till the very last man. And what ended up happening is Friedrich Paulus, who is probably based on, Amsel. Paulus was the commander of the Germans at Stalingrad. About Paulus, what happened with him is that Hitler had promoted him to field marshal when the battle was pretty much lost. And Hitler did not promote him to field marshal because he thought that he was doing a good job. The reason that Hitler promoted Paulus to field marshal was because in German history, there has never been a field marshal who has surrendered. Surrendered. It has just never happened. Field marshals in German history, either they died in battle, or they won. That was just it. They never surrendered. So there has not been a single field marshal in German history that has surrendered. So the reason that Hitler made him field marshal was so that either he would fight to the death or kill himself. That was it. Hitler knew that Paulus was not getting out of there, but he promoted him to field marshal just so that he would either kill himself or fight till the very end. And Paulus basically said, you know what, screw this. This is just stupid. We're not going to die for this corporal. And when he says corporal, he's talking about Hitler because Hitler's rank in World War I was a corporal. And so what Paulus ended up doing is Paulus negotiated with the Soviets in February 1943 to surrender. And Hitler was just absolutely furious about that. Hitler was so angry about that, had ordered like Paulus to be, executed while he's already in Soviet captivity. But it was like 50,000 something Germans had surrendered to the Soviets at that point. It was like they had been surrounded. The winter had kicked in. The Soviets had also taken the German airfield outside of Stalingrad. So the Germans had no chance of resupplying. They were pretty much screwed at that point. And about what Paulus did the right thing in the end, surrendering, because while a lot of the German soldiers that got captured at Stalingrad didn't end up surviving, I think out of the 50,000, 5,000 only survived because a lot of them got sent to work camps afterwards in gulags. But it was either that or everybody died. Like, literally, there was, like it's either you take your chances in Soviet captivity or everyone dies. Like, there was, no other option at that point. There was it. So either everyone dies or we take our chances in Soviet captivity. So Paulus did do the right thing by surrendering. And, Hitler was just such a maniac and such an idiot that he was just so obsessed that, you just hold Stalingrad, you just fight till the very last man, and that was just pretty much it. So Stalingrad was the largest battle in human history. You had over 1 million people died. You had 10,000 people that were dying a day at its peak. It was a really, really gruesome battle. Now, anyways, let me continue here. Also, I hope that you guys don't mind me interrupting this playthrough to talk a lot about history. I like reading history, talking about history, specifically World War II, so I hope I'm not boring people with this. But if my history, discussions are annoying and you just want me to just do gameplay, let me know in the comments, and I will, I'll do less of this. But let's continue here.
General Amsel is a creature of habit. He inspects each German garrison every day. We can use this building to flank his route.
Sniper! Get inside now! Smokes almost got me. We'll have to flush him out before we move on. Follow me!
Also about snipers, especially during World War II.
From across the river. There, the building with the banners.
Now the game is cat and mouse.
One other thing I'll say about snipers is that when you see it in video games where there's this big glare from a sniper scope, it's not going to happen. And there didn't appear to be a glare there. I don't know if there's a glare in the original or the mod changed something here, but there's no sunlight out there, and this is overcast. So there would not be any kind of scope reflection out when there's no sunlight in this type of weather. But most of the time when snipers spotted each other during World War II, they didn't see each other because of the scope glare. And when there is a scope glare, it isn't as ridiculous as you see in Call of Duty where it's this big shining light. It's not like that. When snipers saw each other during World War II, what they saw the muzzle flash. The muzzle flash is right when the bullet leaves the gun. So right when it leaves the barrel, is that initial flash. You will see it. And the most realistic game that I've seen with muzzle flash is Hell Let Loose. If you play Hell Let Loose and you play as a sniper and you look for another player sniper and you see them fire, if you pay attention very carefully, you can pinpoint where they're firing from if you look for the muzzle flash. It is visible. It's a little hard to see, but you can see it. So Hell Let Loose is the most accurate game that I've seen with muzzle flash.
I will draw his fire. Keep your eyes open for the flash. Ready?
Now! Did you see him? He knows exactly
veteran,
where we are. I cannot risk it again. It's up to you to find him now.
On
Stay
veteran,
out of the light.
it's really annoying.
Fires. Move. With him!
Yeah. This is what I talk about. This sniper, this guy is tough. Yeah. You saw that he's using a decoy. That's not really him. That's a decoy. That's smart.
He's on the top floor! Left side!
Yeah, that was just a decoy right there. This battle is really annoying. This guy's got like perfect accuracy.
He's on the 4th floor! Left side! Now you just grazed him! Good hunting! The patrols will surely have heard those shots. We need to get moving.
Find a Walter right here. And about the Mosin Nagant, what I'll say about this rifle, I'm trying to see the bolt on this gun. I don't know if I can see the bolt, but, yeah, I think this is more accurate. The Mosin Nagant comes in two variations. They're the Sniper Mosin Nagant and the regular Infantry Mosin Nagant. It's actually different. Just trying to see if I can show you guys the bolt a little bit more. But you see, the bolt on a Sniper variant of the Mosin Nagant is curved, where the bolt on the Infantry Mosin Nagant is straight. And the reason for that is because the PU scope, the Soviet scope that's on this, you actually, if it was when it's a straight bolt, it will actually hit the scope when you are cycling the bolt. So because it's a curved bolt, the bolt can actually cycle the rounds without actually hitting the scope. So that's the thing about it. And one other thing I'll say about the Mosin Nagant is a lot of people hate on the Mosin Nagant. They say that it's the worst rifle of World War II, but no, the Mosin Nagant is definitely not the worst rifle of World War II. It's a great gun. I fired a Mosin Nagant before. What people are complaining about when it comes to the Mosin Nagant is they're saying that the Mosin Nagant jams. So because its bolt gets stuck, it jams. But the reason for that, it's not that the Mosin Nagant is a bad gun, it's not. The reason that a lot of times the bolt gets sticky, it jams, is because the Soviets were mass-producing this. The Mosin Nagant, I think it was like 70 million rifles something produced. It's the most mass-produced bolt-action rifle in history, is the Mosin Nagant. And so because of that, they rushed the production. They were trying to get them out to the front lines. They cut a lot of corners. And so that's why the bolt jams a lot. If you find like an old Mosin Nagant, like an old one from like World War I, like an Imperial one instead of a Soviet one, then they're going to work smoothly. There's not going to be any kind of issue. So it's not the gun that's the problem. It was the manufacturing. The gun's fine. It was the manufacturing that was the problem.
Shh! German patrol. Let them pass.
They found us! We need to leave now! Hit the floor! They are trying to burn us out! Stay low! Try not to breathe! They are surrounding the building!
Damn. There's a grenade up here already?
Here, my friend. Take my hand. I need you
When I
alive.
played this when I was a kid, I thought that Reznov was going to leave you in this part. I was surprised that he came back.
Armored car outside! Keep moving before it tears us apart! Jump! Go! Sowjetische Truppen! Her mit dem Flammenwerfer! Verbrennt diese Russenschweine!
See how he's got the SVT-40?
Dimitri, we thought you were among the dead in the massacre at the square.
He was. Among them, but not one of them.
We're about to assault the communication post north of here.
Good! Such a move will prevent the German command calling for help. Dimitri and I will provide cover from above. Wait till you hear the screams of dying Germans. Dimitri, this way! Up the
Also, I will tell you guys something else about this historical accuracy mod. If you actually look at the Soviet soldiers, their uniforms are a bit different, but their names are also. So what the historical accuracy mod does, the Vendetta Darkest of Days, on the SVT-40 was also has a better paint job on here now. It looks more original, what it actually looks like. About this is that the Soviet soldiers will have different names, and they will also be different nationalities to represent all the nationalities in the Soviet Union. Because one thing that I really hate is I really hate when people say that the Soviet Union was just Russia, because the Red Army was comprised of Russians, which was the largest group, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Latvians, Estonians, Lithuanians, you had Poles, you had Azerbaijanis, you had Armenians, Georgians, Kazakhs, Uzbeks, Tajiks, Kyrgyzstanis. So there's just so many different nationalities that fought in the Red Army, and personally, I just think it's unfair when you look at World War II games or like World War II movies, and like all of the Red Army soldiers are Russians, and I don't think that that's fair to all the nationalities that fought in it. But I will say this though, if you ever watch like Russian World War II movies, typically actually show a lot of the other nationalities, like a lot of the Central Asian like soldiers. You'll typically see a lot of them in like Russian World War II movies, but a lot of like World War II games, you typically won't see them. But let me see here. Private Petrenko. Yeah, so see that? So this this mod basically brings in a lot of different nationalities into Private Zukaskes. I don't know what kind of name that is. It doesn't sound Slavic to me. That might be Baltic. But there are a lot of different nationalities that are in the Soviet army because of this mod. And for example, like my father is a Polish Tatar. He's a Polish Lipka Tatar, and the Tatars are a people that actually come from Central Asia, and a lot of them settled in Eastern Europe, hundreds of years ago. So my father is a Polish Tatar, my mother is a Polish Slavic, so I guess that makes me 50% Tatar and 50% Slavic. But there was Tatars that fought in the Polish army, and there was also Tatars that fought in the Soviet army, which I'll actually have pictures of them up on the screen here. And this right here, I will also comment on this. This was in the original World at War, so this isn't changed. This is also historically accurate here, and this is one thing that people really don't know about. People say a lot of stuff about history that isn't true in this regard. What I will comment on this is that a lot of times whenever I look at YouTube comments on like World War II documentaries and such, and people in the comment section, they say, for example, oh, if you got taken prisoner as the Germans, if you were like a Allied prisoner of war and you got taken by the Germans as prisoner, you would survive the war in German captivity. But if you got taken by the Japanese, you were not going to survive. The Japanese were extremely brutal to their prisoners. The chances of you surviving was very slim. But here's one thing that people don't tell you, is that if you were an Allied prisoner of war and you got captured by the Germans, you got treated very differently than if you were a Western prisoner and an Eastern prisoner. If you were like an American or like a British pilot that got shot down over like Germany or Nazi-occupied France and you parachuted out and they caught you, you would be taken to a prisoner of war camp like you saw in the movie The Great Escape, and you would probably end up surviving the war. However, though, in the Eastern side, in the Eastern Front, there was nothing like this. In the Eastern Front, soldiers would get mass executed, and it also happened on both sides. So the Soviets would execute German prisoners of war the second they captured them, and the Germans would execute Soviet prisoners of war the second they captured them. So there was a lot of atrocities committed against POWs, especially in the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front didn't just have the biggest battles, but it also had the worst atrocities. So many war crimes that happened on the Eastern Front, and this is an example of this. These guys probably surrendered. They got lined up against a wall, and they just got executed and shot. And you can't do that. That's a complete war crime right there. But the Germans, like I said, the Germans did not see Slavs. They did not see the Soviets as people. And so if you were taken prisoner, as you know, if you were like a Polish soldier or a Soviet soldier and you got taken prisoner by the Germans, the chances of you surviving were very slim. You had almost no chance of surviving. And another thing I'll say about this is that when it came to the Western Front, like a lot of times what people will say is that the Japanese targeted American medics during World War II. That is true. It's a historical fact. The Japanese did target medics. But what people don't tell you is that it also happened on the Eastern Front. So when it came to the Western Front, and the Italian Front, for the most part, medics were not targeted on the Western and, on the Western Front and the Italian Front. So, like, if there was, like, an American medic and he was going to, pick up a soldier who got shot and he had, like, the medic armband on him, he had the medic, symbol on his helmet, he probably would not get targeted by the Germans. It would still happen occasionally, but probably not. And the same thing on the American side. If the Americans saw, like, a German medic, the cross, helmet and everything, trying to pick up, like, a wounded soldier, they probably would not target him. But on the Eastern Front, it was completely different. On the Eastern Front, Soviet soldiers targeted German medics, and German soldiers targeted Soviet medics. So both sides were accused of shooting at each other's medics. It happened a lot.
This way, comrades. Take positions and wait for the signal.
Hold your fire. Do you see the flamethrowers? You must choose your moment.
I think that's an American
Exploding the fuel
flamethrower.
tank will incinerate anyone standing nearby.
Excellent aim, Dmitri! Give covering fire to our comrades below! Another flamethrower! Blow into pieces! German MG! MG in the second floor window! Die for your Führer! German reinforcements! Moving onto the left balcony! Get the medic! German infantry on the move! Keep firing! Shoot! Grenade! More! On the high balcony!
Whenever you give me a sniper in a game, I can always do a lot of damage with it.
Grenade! Get down! Right away!
They are retreating! Forward! Hoorah!
Our friends are moving up! We must do the same! Up the stairs, quickly! This way!
Also, realistic reload on the Mosin Nagant, you would be loading it single because of the, the PTRS-41, this thing, yeah. Now, about the PTRS-41, what I'll say about this is probably the most unrealistic weapon in Call of Duty World at War, is the PTRS, yeah.
More infantry!
Comment on it in
Cut
just
them
1 second.
down! Grenade!
Also, the reason that German grenades were stick is so that they could be thrown farther.
nearby! One less German! Hit the ground! Keep firing! Our friends below need cover! Rip those vermin to shreds! Charge!
The MG42 was used in Stalingrad, but not as often as the MG34. That was used much more. Oh, they're up in the building.
Our comrades are cleaning the building! Watch your fire!
Okay, you can see them fighting through the building. I just like that extra detail.
They have taken the communication post! Amsel will try to run! Quickly, we must cut off his escape route!
Now, what I was saying about the PTRS is the PTRS-41, there is no way that you would be able to, like this, see this? Just running around like this? No, 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 no. About the PTRS-41 is this was a anti-tank rifle. This was meant to pierce German tanks. That was the whole reason behind it, and take out the crews. This was not designed as a sniper rifle. And also, this thing, you would not be able to run around with this and hold this thing standing up. If you fired this thing standing up, it would dislocate your shoulder. The cartridge this thing fires would rip somebody in half. So no, this would not work. And also, the Soviets stopped using PTRSs pretty early in the German invasion because they realized they were ineffective against most German armor. So that's what I'll say about the PTRS-41s. No, this would not be used as a sniper rifle. And
Be ready!
it technically could be used against infantry, but the person would have to be prone.
I opened her!
Wo kommen nur all die Truppen her?
Reloading! Throw it back! Enemy troops approaching! Follow me! I know a perfect sniping position, overlooking the command post. Hold fire!
We
are
use the
too close to
Mosnagant,
our
it's
goal
more accurate.
To reveal our position. There is nothing we can do for our comrades. Their sacrifice will not go. No, you idiot! You see? They will still die! And now you have given away our position!
So about this is, you actually have two choices in this mission. People don't know about this. Now, you can either choose to let your allies die on the left side, and Reznov says there's nothing we can do for them now. Their sacrifice will not go in vain, or you can start shooting at the, the Germans that are shooting your allies. And this actually has an impact not only on Reznov's dialogue, but it actually affects the ending, the Soviet ending. So there's actually 3 different Soviet endings with Chernov, and if you actually help your allies here instead of just waiting for them to die, then this will impact the ending. But I'll explain that when we get to the final mission.
General Amsel will soon be in us. The sounds of battle will flash him out. Look ahead! The building adorned with flags is the German command post. Coward! There he is! See him! He's not alone. Put a bullet in his bodyguard's head. Amsel is using the
Amsel's
destroyed
right there.
tank for cover.
That's his body. Oh, crap. Yeah, so there's a sniper in this mission. I forgot about it. There's one sniper.
Coward! There he is! See him! He's not alone. Put a bullet in his bodyguard's head. The Mudak is hiding behind the destroyed tank.
That's his bodyguard.
There! At
There.
the burning truck! Amsel is cowering behind the artillery piece.
A little hard to hit him here. Got him.
You are a true marksman, Dimitri. Quickly, before their tanks fire again. Die, you
Watch
star-studded
Reznov,
animal.
He'll mow down an entire unit here. That's a scene that a lot of people miss because they just shoot them.
Into the river, Dimitri. It is our only chance. Go!
So I guess we will leave it off here. I hope that you guys enjoyed that part. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you had a lot of fun on this. And for people wondering, like, you know, where do you get all your history knowledge from? None of this is from school or, you know, college or any of that stuff. It's just stuff that I like reading online. And Wikipedia, example, is a great, you know, source. Wikipedia, don't listen to people that say it's inaccurate. It can be corrected pretty quickly. And I've checked Wikipedia. For the most part, it is very accurate. But a lot of the stuff you can just read online. You don't necessarily need college to just be, to know history. But thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, you drop a like. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.